G'day, guys. It's Jay here from Journey of a Whitefeather. Kangaroos, koalas, and Steve Irwin impersonations. Apparently, I'm very good at it. I've got my Canadian headband on. Now, I've got a fellow Australian on today, all the way from Vegas. If people from overseas, we have names for places down here. So it's Brisbane, Australia, which is up north in Queensland. And we have Berenice. Now, she's a breathwork consultant and teacher and expert in my book. I've just had a bit of a read about what she's doing. She's this wonderful lady that does so much great work to help people with breath work. Now, just to quickly go on, this is my opinion of breath work. If you don't breathe, what's going to happen? And you can show how to control yourself by your breath. You've got your thoughts, of course, but if you can actually control your breathing, just like you do a weights and all those kind of things, control your breath and the power of it. This is why I got this lady on, because everyone has a skill, everyone has a story, and everyone has something to tell that people will resonate with. So, Berenice, thank you so much for coming on board. I'm very honored to have you on. How are you?
Oh, amazing, amazing. Thank you, Jay. My pleasure, my honor. I'm just so grateful and excited to share the wisdom of breath with you and your audience. And yeah, love your energy. So super excited to see what unfolds and comes out of our conversation today.
Absolutely. So, my strength is motivational, energetic craziness, as people say. They want to bottle my energy type thing. But I think, as I was telling you off air about the story that you have and the story that you're going through at the moment, the journey to Oz, as I call it.
Mm,
I've been looking at your Instagram post. That's why I thought this is really interesting, because a lot of people, they go to those mind body spirit festivals, and you see the power of certain things. And I think everything has power. It doesn't matter what it is, especially if you put belief behind it. But
mhm.
what you're resonating with is, I mean, I've done massage myotherapy and healing for 28 years, and I know about the way the body, the chi, and the blood goes with regards to healing. But having an expert in breath work and the power of breath work, we need to know. So I'm going to handball it to you, as we're doing Aussie rules in Australia. So any of those overseas people, overseas, it's a handball to us, handballing. So tell us about your story. Start from the start and go for it.
Oh, amazing. All right. So just know that if I were to talk about my story in detail, it would take me like 3 hours. So feel
Oh,
free to.
one day we will. We will do that. Yeah, I'm happy to do
Yeah.
two, three, four parts. I don't care. This needs to be
Oh,
as I said, that needs to be out there. Keep going.
yeah, beautiful. Well, if there's any part of the story that you want to just dive into or ask questions about, just yeah, feel free to interrupt. So I think I'll start present day, right? So right now I'm a breathwork teacher trainer. I've got two businesses. I've got my breathwork teacher training business, and then I've got my meditation with baby goats business as well.
Oh no,
Um,
I've seen this on Channel 7,
oh,
mate.
okay.
We love goats, mate. We love the goat. How?
Yeah.
Okay, here it is for you. I love bears, right? This is where I and this will segue into what you're doing.
Yeah.
People thought I was absolutely doing Steve Irwin impersonations overseas, right? So I went and saw some bears in Vancouver, mate. The most beautiful. I love watching animals in their nature. I don't care who it is, but bears, moose, the Canadian ones, for somehow they resonate with me. We'll talk about the kangaroos after they watch boxing kangaroos. We'll go about that later. But I'm going to hit you with the baby goats, right? How powerful is it? No, and it's not. How powerful is the animal energy? And we know about animal spirits and
Oh,
animal energy. I'm into that. I know this. Okay, a friend of mine, Red Horse from Native American Productions, talked about spirit and talked about animal spirit and the way they use their animal spirits to heal. There's a segue. Tell us about the baby goats.
oh my gosh. Yeah, 100%. So powerful. Like people don't realize how when you're with an animal, you're experiencing unconditional love because they're completely present. They're not thinking about all the things you did wrong in the past or they're not catastrophizing about the future of your relationship and how you're going to hurt them. Instead, they're actually just enjoying being present in the moment. And we used to bring them into classes because they were the teachers for everyone that was trying to get everything perfect, for everybody that was thinking spirituality is this need to be present and be still and get it right. And if you don't get it right, then you don't do spirituality well, or you're too in your head. You shouldn't be there. You don't belong there, right? But
Yep.
these animals, they're just jumping on you. They're like biting you. They're like, if you're lucky, they're weeing on you, right? It's like they don't care about your practice. They don't need you to be perfect. They just love you for who you are.
Can I ask
And
you? Can I ask you? Do you think like I'll go on to this. As I said, we'll probably do 4 or 5 parts because I see that you've so much stuff to talk about with
mm,
regards to the baby goats and the energy they have within the practice of the yoga. Can you? I mean, and you're connected. All right, you're as connected as what I am, and we know about all this. Do you think the baby goats are really feeling that presence and giving that energy out? I mean, I know we're not, and not unconditionally, just no, I'm sorry, I sort of meant unconditionally, but there's sort of like transferring energy. Do you think there's something going on in there as well?
oh, absolutely, 100%. You could see it. See it in the way they came in. They're all like bouncing around, full of energy, and then slowly, slowly, they just all start to get more and more relaxed. And then by the end of it, they're just like cuddling with all the people, and
Yep.
everyone's energy is drawing inward. And then sometimes they're like beautiful experiences where I remember one woman was just cuddling a little baby and she didn't move for like 20 minutes and she's just got tears rolling down her cheeks. Like, and then she came out and just said, "Thank you. That was so healing. I just lost someone really important in my life, and I haven't been able to cry." Like they're
Amazing.
little 100%. Yeah. The
Amazing. Oh, and the other thing with regards to that, you look at and we look at animal farms and all those things that go to schools and all those kind of things. Well, I know a few schools down here which have got have got dogs and oh, I can't remember the exact term they use for it, but I guess well-being dogs as such like that. You
yeah,
are
therapy.
100 therapy dog. You are 100% right of what's going on. What's some of the other experiences you've had with and learning? You probably learned so much from just these baby goats. What have you learned to take into the future and you can share with the audience today?
Yeah. Well, I think it's the way that they can take us into the present. And there's even scientific studies to back this up. Like there was a study done on children with autism
Okay,
and yeah, and therapy dogs. And what they found was like with these visits, like cortisol would drop by 40% in the children. Like,
it's amazing,
and
isn't
there's
it?
other studies that demonstrate that it increases oxytocin, which is the love hormone. So if
Yep,
everyone know cortisol is obviously stress hormone.
yep.
Yeah, and what we saw was like again, people would come in and then they would just say like, I haven't felt that safe to fully let go in a year. And I remember we went to one clinic. It was a suicide and chronic depression clinic.
Okay, and that was
I
in
think
Brisbane. And that was in Brisbane, was it? There,
in
Berenice?
Redland Bay. I
Okay,
can't remember the exact location, but yeah, we ran the event, and then at the end of it, one of the women came out, the counselors, and she said, "Oh my God, thank you so much. I don't think you understand like what you've actually done here." And I didn't understand. So I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" And she's like we've got patients here who haven't smiled in 6 months.
wow.
She's like, and they smiled today.
Do you think the connection to the earth? Because I always say a couple of things with regards to the difference between us as humans and the animal kingdom.
Mm,
You're 100% right. They don't think, they just do, right? And they act, naturally. And I know there's a lot of those instincts within us, but obviously we have the mental consciousness, and I think we've been disconnected from the earth as far as I'm concerned. Okay,
mm.
and there's people like you and me, and a lot of the other people that I talk to are connecting again. Do you believe that the connection to the earth that the animals have are opening up and sort of reminding us as people in the back that weren't really conscious of it, that we are part of the earth and you should be part of the earth?
God, yes, of course. Of course, because what are they? They're the purest representation of the truth. Like when we were evolving, let's say, and this is where what I teach a lot in breathwork as well. Like we have the lizard brain, which is the survival mechanism of eat,
Yep.
sleep, have sex,
Yep.
and then you have the next part of our evolution, which is the mammalian brain, which is the limbic system, which is our emotions, which
Yep.
is tapping to our long-term memory storage, which why does that happen? Well, because of how we feel. And then you think about the way that elephants, they always remember the places where their ancestors had died, right? Or dogs like will go and sit at the grave of their owner so that they feel so deeply. And then there's this final layer, which is the prefrontal cortex or the thinking mind, the human brain, right? And this part of us is like thinking, planning for the future, analyzing, evaluating, discriminating, judging other people. And when you do breath work, that part of that outer layer begins to switch off and get inhibited. And then you get restored to the truth of who you actually are, which is a deeply feeling creature, which is this capacity to actually just feel the substrate of the universe and to connect with other life forms. And the animals, that's what they're here to teach us. They remind us of what we've always known and have either forgotten, obscured through thought, or have told ourselves and then locked ourselves in illusions that we're actually not always in tune. Something I tell everyone when they do meditation or breath work is if you come out of the breath work or meditation and you feel like it didn't work for you, I'm like, that's the story. The story that
Oh, so true.
yeah, it's like, of course it worked. There's a part of your brain right now that is analyzing this, comparing it to something else, making it mean that you're not connected, but you are. You always are plugged in. And 100%, yeah, the animals, like that's what they show us.
I was going to
Because you,
say, I was going to say to you, sorry to cut you off there. I was going to say with regards to um, what you're doing with breath work, with the baby goats and all that kind of stuff, because we've got obviously the ego working predominantly in this, especially in the last, say, 5 years since the pokeroo and all those kind of things.
mm,
And they're bringing up the masculinity and femininity type thing, but they don't really understand that everyone has masculine and feminine qualities. There's
mm.
male and female as a person, but we have masculine and feminine qualities. I'll go into your breath work in a minute, but with regards to what you're saying with the goats and the connection to the earth, do you believe it sort of triggers something, and people are starting to find in your work, are people starting to investigate how to be more whole and more connected to the earth, and with the guidance of people like you and me and everyone else, I
Oh my God,
interview with it.
100%. Yes. I've had people message me like years later and say, "Hey, thank you so much for that one event with baby goats. I now have become a yoga teacher. I now am teaching meditation."
Right.
Like, yeah, it's exactly
Great.
as you
Yep.
say. It triggers something in them. It triggers the memory, and once you feel it in your body, like it just becomes choiceless.
You can't go back, can you?
Yeah, no way.
You can't go back. And I think the hardest thing is, how do you go with awareness?
What do you mean?
Okay, so we're aware of what we are and all this. We'll put it under the universal law and spirituality.
Mm,
Being aware is a fantastic thing because we have more. We can generate a better understanding within ourselves and give that information to others. So we're sort of like that, I guess, that middle pathway between the universe and others. Have you found that with your work as well?
as in, like I
Okay, so
channel.
so basically, what we're doing is becoming more aware of all what we've been talking about, and giving
Mm,
that information out, and getting even more information through. I guess, like right now, I'm getting information from you to actually give out to others, and so we're like that channel. I feel like I'm that channel or that person to actually educate the people out there.
100%.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So because
Yeah.
there's a lot of, they talk put it under spirituality, but I say it's creation and finding yourself as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yes, I agree. Yeah. And that's the thing for me, spirituality has expanded even more so to be like everything is spiritual. How is
Mm.
something not spiritual? Like even just the USB cable on my desk, like how does something like this exist? It's not even tangible. It's just all these atoms buzzing around. And yet here I am having this perception or awareness or experience of it as being solid, but it wouldn't be that if I didn't have consciousness and it didn't exist. So I think there's this view of like spirituality, putting it in a box is you can only be spiritual if X, Y, Z. And I'm like, no, everything is spiritual. And
I've
we're all. opening up a deeper awareness of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I found that it's really great talking to you and all the people that I talk to because I think back in the day it was sort of tagged, especially even in the community. I don't know if you found it, but it's getting a
Mm.
lot better now. But I sort of like tagged spirituals this, and some people still are a bit scared of the word.
Mm.
Have you found that as well?
In my clients, definitely. Not so much myself, obviously.
No, no, not us. So we're okay with it because we're trying
Mm.
to preach the great word. But
Mm.
have you found resistance? And I'll go into your breath work in 1 minute because that's really interesting. The goat thing was amazing. Have you found resistance in some ways with people going, oh, this is all heebie jeebie witchy poo stuff. Um, talking about witchy poo stuff like, thinks you're on an episode of Charmed or something like that, but they don't understand the deep connection we do have and the understanding we do have. We can see messages within it. Have you found resistance
Of
in your
course,
work?
of course. But my life is that. My life is an episode of Charmed. Like,
So's white.
and yeah, and the words that they often use are woo-woo, right? It's like, oh, it's too woo-woo.
I
Um,
get witchy poo all the time. Yeah,
oh, but you,
witchy poo stuff.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, well, that's exactly it. I'm like, you can come and join. Why not? It's fun.
So the question was basically, do you still reckon there's a fair bit of resistance out there at the moment?
I mean, I feel like you know this. Like, what you look for, you will find, right?
Yeah,
And correct.
yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it's like not really, only because I make this presumption and I also believe that it's true. It's like breathwork is the new yoga. In 10 years, breathwork is going to be so popular that it's just going to be socially normal. And
Okay.
so when I'm
I'll
talking,
I'll segue
uh,
into that. Sorry, I'll segue into that. Tell us all about the breath work. You said it's going to be the big thing. I do a little bit myself. I do more yoga, but I do appreciate everything is the most important thing for your own existence, I guess, and growth. Tell us about
mm,
breath work. I've seen it at the Mind Body Spirit festivals, but I haven't seen it the way you do it. All right.
ah,
So I just say, look, this is why I got you on board to say the passion for what you got, and this is your gift to the world. Okay, so watching the videos, I have to have this later because I want to know more about it because doing these videos, as I said, I learn a lot about different modalities and different aspects because you live and breathe it. There we go, segue. Uh, but I'm going to leave you to go off and tell us about breath work. Tell us all about it,
oh my gosh. Okay.
and off you go.
Yeah, cool. So there's currently a really popular model of breathwork right now, which a lot of people are calling holotropic or Wim
Okay.
Hof.
Okay.
And the truth is, within breathwork, there's actually three different modes, and these are all I've kind of bundled them in my training so that they're all classified into different sections. But you've got functional breathing, which is like the least known, I would say, and then you've got yogic breathing, which is like pranayama breathing, and then you've got the really popular stuff, which is holotropic and Wim Hof. Because this
Could you explain the breathing for us? How those three work for the people? Because some people don't, obviously.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So for like complete newbies, breath work is literally just shifting the pattern of your breath or the rate that you breathe to create an altered state of consciousness or a physiological change in your body. Now, when it comes to that first category, this is functional breathing, and it's all about changing the ratio of CO2 or increasing your tolerance to carbon dioxide so you can increase your VO2 max, which is the amount of oxygen you can absorb from your bloodstream into your
That's right.
muscles
Yep.
and
Yep.
per minute. And this is where a lot of the athletes start. And this is where like people in the UFC are working with this technique as well. It's hypoxic training, breath holding, and that sort of thing. The second
Can
category,
I ask you really quickly? One thing came up back in the day. They used to go to places. They used to go to elevated mount. Yep, elevated mounds with lower levels of oxygen within the atmosphere or within the area. So obviously they go into that hypoxic state. So is that pretty much what we're doing? Except you're doing it in normal and you're actually controlling it yourself.
yes, 100%. Yes.
Okay,
So
cool.
produce it. yeah, almost restricting oxygen so that you have to utilize, or your body creates more red blood cells so you can utilize the oxygen that's inside you
That's what,
already.
yeah, that's exactly what they were
Yeah.
doing. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a trend in the, I think it was a bit of a trend in the mid '90s. I think they were doing it. I think the US team were doing it. The US team, I think it was the US swim team and the athletic
Yes.
team were a lot. The athletic team were doing it a lot.
Yes.
PE trained. I love we'll look at all that science stuff, but now it's sort of shifted. But anyway, there we go. Keep going. Sorry to interrupt there.
Yeah, no, awesome. So the next category is the pranayama breathing. And pranayama breathing is kind of like specific patterns in yogic breathing where you can create an altered state. So go into sharper focus or go into higher energy or go into a relaxed state. So activating your parasympathetic or sympathetic nervous system to shift how you're feeling or how you're thinking. And the final category, I'll give an example actually. So the Navy SEALs use box breathing, which is like breathing in for 4, holding for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. And what this does is it just lowers you into a different brainwave state. So you might go from a high beta, which is thinking really fast, like trying to problem solve everything, even if their problems aren't even real, to dropping down into an intuitive insightful space where it's easy to access old memories or
Okay.
older intuitions, right? And the last category is the one that is just booming right now, which is the one that I was saying, like in 10 years, this is just going to be so normal. Right now, it's like everyone kind of knows about it, but no one really understands it. And it's still a little bit woo-woo, but weird. And this is referred to as holotropical Wim Hof. But the thing about all of these branches or trademarked versions of this breathwork that are coming out is that they are all actually derivative of Tumno breathing. And Tumno breathing is an ancient meditation technique where you create heat in the body. And the technique is breathing in and out through the mouth with no pause at the bottom, no pause at the top. And you do this for maybe an hour or 3 hours, depending on what teacher you learn from. So within
Right.
my own training, we do the same thing, but it's 45 minutes. And the potential of this technique is just insane. It's like the probably one of the most advanced techniques that we use. And in these journeys, people are, like I said, they're turning off their prefrontal cortex because they're actually releasing so much carbon dioxide through their breath that they can't use the oxygen. The oxygen in the bloodstream can't go into the tissues and brain. So what happens is like the youngest part of the brain gets inhibited, the neocortex, and then boom, all of a sudden you can remember things that you've forgotten. You can feel emotions that you knew might have been there, but didn't know how to access. And this is where I suppose the second part of my story comes in, because for me, I started in meditation, which is how I started that first baby goats business.
Yep.
And the second business was because I went to this, I went,
Transformation, it looks like.
yeah, I went to like for a little bit of history for myself. I was raised um, without my father, so he left when I was 2, and then at about 12 years old, I was molested by my stepdad, and and then probably within the next 6 months, my mum left, and then I moved to Australia to come live with my dad again, and that it was such a time where I didn't obviously, being a 12-year-old, know how to ask for support. I need support that I needed, and
Geez,
it
you've
was
done a
so.
wonderful job. You've done a wonderful job. You really have.
Thank you. Yeah, it was so confusing. And I remember like the way I dealt with it was through like a not eating properly, over exercising. And then my brain developed like this kind of just massive overthinking, obviously, because it's like trying to protect itself,
Yeah,
you know?
could I ask you with that one? So you got the so we'll talk. We won't even go subconscious and conscious thinking at the moment. So you went
Mm.
through that physical trauma, and do you think that the education now is to do exactly what you just said? Go and do exercise. I mean, I did it as well. Exercise, try and find someone to sort of trying to find something in the physical world to balance yourself out. Whereas if you go deep within, which we both of us have done, with the modalities or the way we've been led to go? Do you think that's sort of lost in the way and you found it now, then you're trying to teach it? I mean, it's such a simple concept, but yeah.
Yeah, beautiful question. 100%. It's like I was trying to grasp for control externally. And how do we do that? I'll just control my image. I'll control how I'm seen. I'll control my food. I'll try and push myself and force myself to complete the stress response that couldn't be completed. I'll just run as fast as I can, and because I couldn't run back then.
Mm.
And then I think now I look at my life and yeah, anytime I have a feeling, even when I'm tired, I'm like, I know this isn't real. This is a feature of my internal state, so I can shift that.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely. See, and this is the thing with what we're doing, ladies and gentlemen, getting people like Berenice on to just express that there's more to life than just, I guess, looking for an external outlet in some way. It's not. No, we're not saying not go and do what you got to do, but have an understanding of what we're doing. Looking at the mind, looking at the conscious mind, subconscious mind, looking at some of the things, basic stuff like breathing. I mean, I
Yeah,
think it, I think
so
it's so lost. I'll give you an example there, Berenice. Sorry to think. Um, trauma people with trauma. I find, and this is my opinion, and we've got about 5 minutes to go, so we'll do this as the last question, then we'll go on to the second part.
okay.
Do you get people through, right? Because I've had
Yeah.
4 or 5 people that have come just know what I do now because I'm still going through, you know, expressing what I do. But some people know exactly what's happening, and they
Mm,
ask me. They've gone to professionals, and they've
mm,
walked out worse. Now,
mm,
I believe that they still have to see these professionals because I did do that myself. But when I explained the situation, when I explained that you have to have a coping mechanism or a coach or someone like you or me to guide you on that, when you have that fire in your body and you can't control it because they're bringing emotions out that they don't know how to control, and you're sort of like a Texas tornado.
mm.
Have you had those kind of people before that have done that and gone, not to downgrade anyone because you must, I mean, we're not downgrading the medical profession here. Because I've
Yes.
done it myself. I did it myself. I had to do it and I'm very grateful that I did do it. But I'm very grateful I had a coach, Greg Riley and Michael McNair and Deirdre James to guide me when I did have to raise those emotions, if you know what I mean. So
Mhm.
have you had those kind of people come through and how have you dealt with it?
Oh, 100%. And I love that you've tipped your hat off to the medical community as well, because I agree. There is definitely a place and a time for that. And I
Yep.
went through my own journey with it.
Yep.
And it's also understanding, like you said, the limitations of talk therapy. Like you can talk about what you remember, but then at a certain point, and there are studies that actually show this with PTSD. It's like at a certain point, you just begin reliving experiences without actually healing them. And then that just re-traumatizes you further. And yeah, and not a lot of health professionals who are not holistic know that. And I definitely have had that, like people coming to me, and it's like they've been working with the same professional for maybe like years. And in my head, I'm like, well, no, when you work with me, like you don't work with me for years because you don't need to.
No,
Like
no,
you're
that's
gonna
right. That's exactly
right
what. Yes.
give you the
Yeah,
tools,
great.
and then you'll leave, and you'll be able to help yourself, and you'll continuously get better and better. And so
What
the
would
way
you do?
I
And what would you do? Sorry, but yeah, and what would you do? Because I think with what you've got and the understanding you have, and we've all got our different, like we're the super friends, right? Superman, Batman have all got their powers, right? But come to,
X-Men.
but come together. We can help people, and the people who need to be helped by you or me will come, and then we've got an access to others. If you get where I'm going, like you might say, you might need to see Jay because he's a motivational nut and he can get you going. I'd say, right, you need a breath work. I got a friend of mine in Brisbane. You need to go there. Have you found that happening in the last few years? And how do you help people with that crazy, I guess, crazy trauma on their body?
Oh my God. Okay. So yes, like ever since I started, it's been like that. Right. And I'll talk about my own journey a little bit as well,
Yeah,
because
go for it. Yeah.
yeah, I did see psychologists, and it helped because I was able to remember more of like my own trauma, but it didn't shift my behavior or how I was acting in the world. And that's why we
Clip
get
that.
it.
Clip it.
Credit.
Clip it. Clip that.
Yeah, and
Absolutely
that
clip it.
yeah, and that's why it's so important to come to people like us because I remember it wasn't until I worked with my own mentor, same as you, where we actually did the deep inner work. And when people come to me, they when you go into a breath work, you're working at a somatic level. So I talk about kind of like I'll do an assessment of where you're at. It's like, are you in the remembering stage where you just talk about everything that you've been through? Great, awesome. Probably not for me, like go work with a professional. Next stage up, are you in the stage where you rewrite or reframe? And when you reframe, that means you're telling a different story. You're talking about the gift that you got from your trauma. And I'm like, okay, cool, we might do some work here. This is mostly mindset. And then there's the relive, which is somatics, right? And
Okay,
in
yep.
this stage, it's like breath work, dance, body work, actually feeling the emotions. Because what we know is that trauma is an incomplete stress response. If you weren't able to actually fight in that moment where you felt terrified, or run, flight when you were
I saw
feeling
I, I sort of see it as a warrior stage. Yeah, I get where you're going. Yeah,
yeah,
that yep.
right? So then it's like you've got to actually feel the unfelt feelings because otherwise it's just going to stay stuck in your body. And then after that, it's the rebirth stage. How can we transmute this to joy, right? And people come to me and they have these experiences where it's like your body, your unconscious mind is already knows how to do the work. It's already healing itself. But you've just got a story in your narrative that you can't feel it, or you're too in your head, or you can't remember, or someone told you it was wrong to experience that, so you're not allowed to experience it. And then we shut that part of your brain off, and then boom, what happens? The body actually can express itself and what it felt back then, and it's safe to do so now, and the breath can complete itself. You stop holding all your trauma in your lungs, and you
It,
can actually be
it's
free.
it is an amazing feeling. Now we're going to go on to part two, ladies and gentlemen. This has been great. This is why we get people who have absolute skill and love for what they do, and we know we're next level in some ways, where we're actually trying to get people to really feel themselves as human beings. Part two coming up. We'll talk about the more about the breath work with Berenice. And if you have any questions, of course, DM us and we can pass information on. It's been great. Part two coming up very, very soon. Take care, ladies
Oh,
and gentlemen.
thank you.